Alright, so here is part 2 of an Excel tutorial for my lab methodology students. First and foremost, with any spreadsheet or anything you actually do in a laboratory, it's good to label everything. So in this case, I just labeled column B, C, and D, name 1, name 2, name 3. Of course, it depends on what you're doing, but you'll want to name them appropriately. And I want to show you some kind of things in terms of cell references if you remember the previous tutorial on what a cell is and referencing a cell. So under the name column, I'm just going to put the number 1. Right underneath it, I'm going to put the equal sign. Remember, now it's going to be looking for a reference or a formula or something along that line. I'm going to click on the cell above it, so it's going to reference B2, and I'm actually going to put plus 1. All right. When I put that down and I push enter, it should be taking what's in cell above it in B2 here and adding 1. So I should get the number 2, which I have here. And another interesting thing here is when you highlight a cell, you'll see a little box that you see right here. If you see my cursor, I can drag and drop that, and now I can kind of copy that function down. Now, as you can see, what I just did here is now I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, that's kind of interesting. Well, if I go down and click on this cell, if you remember the original one here, it said B2 plus 1. Well, when I drug that down, it made it relative. So as I drug it down, it went to the next cell, and instead of putting B2, it went to B3. So it took the information from B3 and added 1. This one took B4, which is here, and added 1. So that's interesting. So it's a relative cell reference. So as you drug it down and copied it, it will then change that B and 4 function accordingly based on the column or the row it in. If I went over here and you see B2, when I drag it over 1, instead of B2, it's going to have C2 because it's within the same cell. So here you can see here, it has C2 plus 1, and you can see the same thing. Now if I drag it down, it's going to keep it within the C range, and the row number will change. Now some things is you may want to do a calculation. Let's say from these numbers I always want to, or here I'm going to put a couple numbers here. 56, 100, 1008, 300. Let's say I want to subtract 20 from each one of those. So let's say in this cell, I'll do equal this cell minus this cell. Well, what's interesting, if I push equal, I will get actually 56 minus 20. But if I go to copy here, I'm not going to get the answer I want. Because I always want to refer to cell G3 here. But when I drug it down, it was G4 because that is also a relative cell reference. So as I drug it down, it changed accordingly in the direction I moved it. Well, if I go back up to here and take this G3, I can put dollar signs around it. What that will do is make it an absolute cell reference. So now it will always refer to that cell, which is the 20. Also notice too in the equation, if you notice the color highlights, that the colors light up the cells that are being referenced in that particular equation. So now I've got E4 minus $G, $3. When I push enter, I get my 36. But I'm now going to go up here and drag this down, and now I get my 1008 minus 20. The reason it's doing that, if I click on the cell, is it always refers to cell G3, so we call this an absolute reference. This is a valuable tool when using Excel, and you may use it a lot if you want to do a particular calculation. Here's another thing. Let's say I have all these numbers and I want to get their average. I can click on the cell below, push equal, and I can go through the formulas and look for different types of equations. So here's like some very common ones, and here is actually the one that I want, which is average. I can highlight this, or actually let me go over this. I'm just going to type the equation equal average, and as I start typing it comes up, I double click on it. And now it's asking me behind these parentheses for a range of numbers. So if I go up to this column and highlight here, you can see it puts it in here. And matrices or arrays are separated with a colon, and then I can close it with a parentheses, and it will take the average of all of these cells. So that's how we do an average function in Microsoft Excel. Another common one is the concatenate function. So I'm going to type up two words, yes in one cell and sir in another cell. And down here I'm going to put equal. So once again, we're looking for cell references. I'm going to refer to this cell, and now I'm going to use the and sign or shift 7. And now click on another one. And what it's going to do when I push enter is actually combine the information in these two cells right next to each other. Periodically, in some of the tasks we do in lab methodology, that's an important function to understand.